Are you thinking about getting a service dog but unsure whether you qualify under the ADA? Today, I'm covering exactly what the Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as the ADA, says about service dog eligibility. We'll talk about some real-life examples of who and who wouldn't qualify, and why it's a smart move to have both training and medical documentation, even if businesses can't legally ask you for them. Stick around to the end because I'll also share a common mistake people make when assuming they qualify for a service dog and how to avoid legal trouble in the future. Before we dive in though, I wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Lisa. I'm a certified professional dog trainer and an Atlas Assistance Dog certified dog trainer. I also am a Canine Good Citizen evaluator and a Catch Academy dog training mentor, and I help dog guardians train reliable, well-mannered service dogs using force-free methods. If you find this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. Before we dive into the content, I did want to give a quick disclaimer. I am not a lawyer, and this video is for educational purposes only. While I base this information on the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, and my experience as a service dog trainer, I always recommend counseling with a medical professional or legal expert if you have specific questions about your rights. This video does not serve as legal or medical advice. Okay, so now that we got that disclaimer out of the way, let's go straight to the source. According to the ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, a person must have a disability that substantially limits one or more major life activities to qualify for a service dog. Now, let's break that down. A disability under the ADA is 1, a physical or mental impairment, and 2, that significantly limits a person's ability to perform essential daily tasks. This can include things like walking, seeing, hearing, thinking, breathing, working, going to the grocery store, caring for oneself, or performing manual tasks like doing the dishes or upkeeping the house, just to name a few. Basically, if you're unable to do things that are generally required to take care of yourself and your living situation. Now, many of you probably have read that in the ADA and are like, I don't know what a major life activity is, or I don't know how impaired I have to be with a major life activity. So let's look at some real life examples to see who would and wouldn't qualify for a service dog. Because I get this question a lot. Does anxiety qualify? Does asthma qualify? Does depression qualify? Does PTSD qualify? And it's really hard to explain because it really does depend on the individual. And I do want to preface this as this is just a general example. In order to know if you really do qualify, you would have to talk to a medical professional and tell them your situation if they don't already know, and they'll be able to help determine whether your disability or your mental impairment is something that inhibits daily activities. Okay, so first let's talk about anxiety, because I know this is a big question that I get often. So I'm gonna give you an example of 2 hypothetical people who both are diagnosed with anxiety. The first one is going to be someone who would qualify for a service dog, and the second is going to be for a hypothetical person that wouldn't necessarily qualify. So first, let's look at this hypothetical person, Sarah, who has anxiety. Sarah has severe panic attacks and experiences dissociative episodes where she cannot safely navigate public spaces. Her service dog is trained to alert her before having a panic attack or a panic episode, and can provide deep pressure therapy to ground her and guide her out of a crowded area safely. Before she had her trained service dog to assist her, she really struggled to go to the grocery store and struggled to even go out in public because of these panic attacks. And so she would end up getting DoorDash to her house because she just really couldn't leave her house. Now let's look at a hypothetical person who wouldn't qualify. James gets nervous in social situations, but does not experience a significant disruption to his daily life. He can still go to work, drive, and handle social interactions independently. And while a dog may bring him comfort, this alone does not qualify as a service dog under the ADA. Example 2, let's talk about mobility issues. We're gonna look at 2 hypothetical situations again. Let's look at hypothetical person 1, Kathy, who has MS, which causes frequent muscle weakness and instability when walking. Her service dog is trained to help her with balance, retrieve dropped items, and provide support when getting up from her chair. Without her service dog, she could severely injure herself, and so her service dog helps her do these day-to-day life activities safely. The second hypothetical person would be Michael, who doesn't necessarily qualify for a service dog. He has mild knee pain from an old sports injury, but he can still walk, work, and function independently. While a dog might provide companionship or emotional support, he does not meet the ADA standards of substantially limiting a major life activity. For example 3, let's look at autism. Person 1 is Emily. Emily is autistic and struggles with sensory overload in public spaces. Her service dog is trained to interrupt self-harming behaviors like scratching or picking at skin, providing deep pressure therapy to calm her when she's experiencing overstimulation, and create a buffer in crowds out and about in busy areas. Without her service dog, she would retreat at home and not leave her house because she wasn't sure if the grocery store was going to be really busy or not busy, and so she just avoided going altogether. Let's look at the second person who wouldn't qualify, who also has autism. Alex experiences some social anxiety and sensory discomfort, but is able to function daily, especially with the coping techniques that his therapist taught him. While a dog might bring him comfort, it wouldn't necessarily legally qualify as a service dog. Now, I could keep going with more and more examples, but ultimately I want to say that the ADA is pretty vague in general, and that's because each individual is very unique and their situation is unique, so it's so important to talk to a medical professional to find out if you would legally qualify for a service dog under the ADA. I do want to touch on though that it's easy to get stuck in this trap of not feeling quote unquote disabled enough, and it's really easy to look at someone who we can visually see has a physical disability, but with invisible disabilities, it's really easy to think, am I disabled enough? And to that, I want to encourage you to not compare your situation to others. Just because someone else appears to be quote unquote more disabled, that doesn't mean that you can't benefit from a service dog. I feel like there's a lot of people that can really push through kind of anxiety, depression, PTSD, and think because you're pushing through super hard that it's not really fair for you to have a service dog. But I would argue that just because you feel like you're really pushing through so you are able to get to the grocery store, that doesn't mean that you don't for sure qualify. Like I said, these are examples I'm providing that are hypothetical, and only you can really know by speaking to ideally a therapist or a psychiatrist that knows you very well, but you can also talk to your regular doctor as well. Which brings me to my next point. Let's talk about a big legal misconception. A doctor's note is not required for public access according to the ADA. Businesses can't legally ask you for medical proof or documentation for your service dog. That said, in all of my videos that talk about, how to train a service dog, I always talk about first getting a doctor's note. And then people will always comment saying, it doesn't say that on the ADA. And that's my fault for not explaining this thoroughly, but you want to have it ahead of time in the rare case that you come across legal trouble in the future. Having documentation from your doctor is so important, because in the rare case that you get into a legal dispute, having proof that your disability was documented before any issues come across can help strengthen your case. Once again, I'm not a lawyer, but it's better to have that note on file from your doctor stating that your disability meets ADA criteria before you're ever put in a situation where you need to defend your right. This is why I always encourage people to keep a training log as well, because having some sort of log of what training you've worked on, whether it's in a journal or doing a video journal of your training, can really help if you ever come across a legal dispute to show that you actually put in the work for training. Before we wrap up, let's go over the biggest mistake I see when people assume that they qualify for a service dog. The biggest mistake is the misuse of various terms, like thinking emotional support equals service dog, or thinking therapy dog is service dog. Remember that emotional support animals and service dogs are not the same. Service dogs are task trained to assist with a disability. ESAs provide comfort, but are not legally recognized as service dogs under the ADA. An ESA is protected under the FHA, the Fair Housing Act, and can make sure you're not discriminated against when looking for housing. A service dog is a task-trained dog that is protected under the ADA. Now, with a therapy dog, it can get confusing because a service dog can have therapeutic benefits, but therapy dogs are specifically for bringing them to public spaces like a hospital or airport or anywhere where they might need the support of that therapy dog. And therapy dogs don't inherently have public access rights, but they do get permission to enter these spaces via that organization. So Dodger and I do therapy dog work at Denver International Airport. Denver International Airport has given us access rights there to perform therapy dog work. All in all, if your dog just simply makes you feel better, but isn't trained to perform specific tasks that mitigate your disability, they do not qualify as a service dog under federal law. I really encourage you to, number one, read through the ADA yourself, because there's going to be the most up-to-date information on the ada.gov website, and they have a ton of FAQs on there. Like, another common misconception is that your service dog needs to wear a vest out in public, which is also not true, but also recommended if you don't want people to constantly stop you and ask if your dog is a service dog. Okay, so let's quickly recap what we spoke about. First, you must have a disability that significantly impacts major life activities to qualify for a service dog. Service dogs must be trained to perform specific tasks that mitigate your disability. And while a doctor's note is not required for public access, it's highly recommended for the rare case that you get into a legal dispute. Last but not least, emotional support animals are not service dogs. Therapy dogs are not service dogs. But a service dog could also be a therapy dog and just have two different roles. But that's a whole nother video, because it can be challenging where your dog gets confused. Like, now I go visit people and now I don't. It's definitely possible. But like I said, I'm not gonna get too much into that because that's a whole different topic. All right, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my next training tip and everything service dogs. I also encourage you to check out my service dog training courses for full step-by-step guides on training your service dog the right way. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I'd love to answer them, and maybe I'll make a future video about it. All right, that's it for today, everyone, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.